Hey guys, in this video I'm just going to go over my overall review of the current POE2 early access, just talk a little bit about my experience, what I think about the game. So, play the game, like, I don't even know, 600-700 hours, something like that by now. First character I made is a SSF softcore warrior, got to 94, did Arbiter for the bosses, all the bosses on this character pretty much, minus like Simulacrum, but then I re-rolled Monk in hardcore SSF, got to 96, did all the bosses on him, and then a Gimling also in hardcore SSF, so I haven't played any trade or anything like that. And pretty much have done most stuff on the Gimling. I'm still playing them right now, so I haven't quite done everything, but just kind of go over things. Music and art in the game, pretty much, I think it's as good as it gets. I have no complaints here on any level. It's really good. Like Trial Second music or like Act 2 music, like I'm not going to forget any of these. They got a good style and, you know, kind of thematic fitting for, you know, whichever area you are in the game. It's really good. Visually, I think it's pretty much close to flawless. Like, aesthetics are good. It's not clowny, cartoony. Nothing really feels out of place. It stays consistent. I like that. So, in-game, it's alright. It needs a ton of work and a ton of polishing still. I'm hoping it's like the worst version of the in-game we will ever see, honestly, in this game. So, it doesn't seem like it's gone through like any amount of a process or reiteration or hardly any testing, honestly. It seems very, very fresh out the gate. It's very rough, I guess. So I went into this early access expecting zero balance. It's kind of hard not to think about balance when you've played it for like 700 hours, though. So a lot of judgmental perspective. I'm sure a lot of people have the same thing. Definitely could have been worse, but I'd say the in-game balance is genuine, like a 2.5 or 3 out of 10. It's really bad. Hopefully it's just the worst balance we'll ever see in the game, and it gets more clean, and hopefully, you know, they care a little bit more about balance moving forward. It's obviously not a top priority, so take it for, you know, what it is. It just ends up becoming very easy to just find stuff in the game that just doesn't make sense all over the place from a balancing perspective. You know, like anything that anybody says complaint wise, it's probably pretty justified. Life, energy shield, whatever. Wind Dancer, Grim Feast, whatever, you know, there's stuff everywhere, Herald of Ice. So the one thing that I think resonates pretty strong with me right now is I think level 1 to 30 on a fresh character is the most interesting and engaging gameplay. I think it's better than the end game on high level characters. It's more fun to play low level characters. I think gearing up is more fun, and the way you play in combat is more fun and engaging. So like loot acquisition itemization, more fun in the early game, which is really weird because that's definitely not the case in POE1, for example. It's the exact opposite. POE1 in-game stuff is like infinitely more enjoyable, gearing and gameplay-wise, how you fight these bosses and stuff. But in POE2, the in-game kind of starts feeling like cookie clicker way too quickly. Like, that can be okay, like once you have like, I don't know, like Fob Gun level gear where you just have like everything that you could possibly ever have on a character, that kind of stuff, but I felt like my gameplay genuinely mattered so much more in the early game, and every upgrade was very much needed and felt good to get on like a level 1 to 30 character. Somewhere around, I don't know, like your second ascendancy, you start getting so much power creep when you get Hammer of the Gods on a warrior. Everything just starts dying practically instantly. It gets kind of nuts, right? So that's that. Hey guys, want to become a coding master? Then check out boot.dev. Learn back-end web development from start to finish in the Python and Go programming languages. The smartest way to learn to code is to make sure that you're never bored, so that you can stick with it long enough to reach your goals. You can't learn to code without actually writing a lot of code and building real projects. I've used boot.dev before, and it's super easy to follow and will immediately start guiding you on your way to becoming a coding god. The boot.dev Discord community has tons of real humans to help if you ever get stuck. All the content is free to read and watch in guest mode. A paid membership unlocks all the interactive features like hands-on coding, AI assistance, progress tracking, and the game elements. We never want a student to feel like they aren't getting their money's worth, so they offer a 30-day no questions asked refund policy, a free demo of every course and its interactive features. Go to boot.dev and use my code ALKaiser to get 25% off your first entire year if you choose the annual plan. Thanks boot.dev for sponsoring this video. I got like 1k hour in different Souls games, you know, Elden Ring, Sekiro, Lies of P, that kind of stuff, Dark Souls. So I actually like the dodge rolling timing stuff. It's pretty fun. I really enjoy it. It's satisfying. For me, I get the design kind of approach here and appreciate it, but it shouldn't be the only option to like victory. It shouldn't be like an absolute, you have to be able to like perfectly time these rolls and stuff. Yeah, dodge roll, I do in general like it. Wish more high level characters got this experience. I think on high level characters, we're just way too powerful in general in all regards. But making characters tanky and knowing how to navigate your survivability is pretty tricky right now. It's like kind of weird. Just it kind of comes down to just stacking combinations or just like tons and tons of energy shield and evasion. Energy shield plus evasion is like giga, and strength scaling is really weird because you're like slowly building up a life pool. You might get to maps with like 2 to 2.5k life, and then you're just slowly, eventually creep up to 3k. Eventually you creep up, towards like maybe like the mid 90s. You get up to like 4k life or something like that. But there's some weird items in this game, like the Arbiter chest makes my Gimling, it gives him like 2.6k HP, and then the Moxuatl shield gives him almost 2k as well. It's like, it's really weird because there's not really much in between items. There's a tiny bit, but you just go from 4k life, and then suddenly 1 or 2 items later, you're 7 or 8k life. And like, I never hit 5k, I never hit 6k or anything like that. I just went from 1 point to a, 4k to like 7k. It's like, what? That's so weird. Life nodes, whatever. So the current situation of life just genuinely makes no sense. Especially when you have monks with like, my monk had 20,000 energy shield with Grim Feast, and simultaneously still had over 80% evasion. 3 ways I like to think of the current defensive stats in this game, POE1 as well, is like max hit. This is the total damage your character basically can take in a single hit. ES is going to be king here, obviously. EHP is effective health pool. A lot of people use this term, unless I'm just cooked, they use it incorrectly. EHP is like how much damage your character can take, including all your mitigations, such as things like block and evasion. So the number on most characters, like high-end characters right now, is probably something like 30k or something like that, right? Like a pretty stacked character, your effective health is probably like 30k or something like that, including all your like dividing mitigations and all that kind of stuff, including your whatever your energy shield is or life. In some cases it might even be like 40, 50k, 60k. It's basically just like your mapping survivability. So a character with a block, with a shield, and characters with high evasion and or both, these characters are going to have a very high EHP, but you have to have a max hit to back it up also. So that's why you kind of see the shift in like Deadeye's playing hybrid with energy shield, Grim Feast, and evasion, because it kind of solves your max hit by having that energy shield pool while simultaneously having a really good EHP from your evasion dividing damage. But sustain is like the last one. This is like leech, recovery, recharge, stuff like that to get your, life or energy shield back. Between the 3, energy shield's way too good. Evasion, I think, is also way too good. Armor is weird. It doesn't even matter, I feel like, in a lot of regards, because nobody really dies to armor or physical damage, except in the early game. And then at the end game, if you do die to physical damage, it's like you're dying because you got hit by the monkey boss attack or Colossus or like Zest or something like that. But in general, in mapping, the fizz hits are like super telegraphed, like the big falling bone Colossus dudes and other things. They're really, really slow. They do hit hard physical, but they're all predictable and you see it coming. So armor kind of sucks, and you don't even need armor anyway. But then again, how do you realistically begin to even scale up your max hit on an armor build? It's like you just get more strength, I guess, or eventually you get some crazy ass boss only items. This would be like the Trial Master Shield. It gets up to like 42% life with 3 sockets, and then Arbiter's Chest gives 35% life, not including like the strength or attribute percentage roll you could get on it, which is like, there's like nothing in between. You just go from like a 4k life build, suddenly you're like a 7k life build. I don't know, it's weird. And then ES should be sustaining through recharge. Instead, it sustains through Grim Feast. There's like 20 energy shield recharge nodes on the tree. So this is like design philosophy that's just failing, in my opinion. So Grim Feast is kind of bullshit because it makes recharge irrelevant, the core defense sustaining mechanic of energy shield. But it also solves your sustain because you're picking up the little things while you're mapping. It solves your max hit because you're doubling, right? And then it also solves your EHP because you just have so much of everything anyway. But Meditate and Grim Feast probably need deleted or significantly changed. Like, you can't have a 30 spirit aura solve all three defensive aspects of the game. So Grim Feast is like absolutely fucking cooked. Evasion is cool. I like it. I like the buffs, the changes to it, but it's too powerful, I think. Part of this might be Wind Dancer being extremely strong, but I think that the formula is just a little too in favor of evasion. It's really easy to get numbers over 80%, which is incredibly high, and then all you have to do is get a little bit of, like, you know, get a decent life pool or get a decent energy shield pool. I think maybe if ES builds were hitting like 7k ES max and life was like 4k max, the game would make a lot more sense to me. Not 20k and, like, you know, you eventually can get like a 10k life build if you gymling and like get enough strength, stuff like that. So it's just weird because the weakest character to physical damage, as long as you're playing a like a genuine actual like build, not some nonsensical build that just doesn't make any sense with how you're designing it. Like, Armor's like the weakest at physical damage. He's the most likely guy to die to physical damage because he just probably has the lowest max hit. He has the smallest like life pool. He's probably not stacking energy shield like the characters on the right side of the tree or the top side of the tree are going to do, right? So the character that is most likely to die in the current meta, I guess, of the game, if you want to call it that, is the armor build, and that's Troll. Meta's like energy shield or energy shield evasion or like a giga life guy. Scavenge plating sucks because the conditional part of it, the consistent, like, reliable defense should be armor. I feel like that's how it is in POE1. The consistent, reliable defense should be armor. But you gave the orange the kind of like conditional defense aura of armor, scavenge plating. It's got like conditionals on it and duration, so it's not always going to be up when you need it. It's not reliable. So I think scavenge plating is pretty good, but it can't have like a double conditional. First you have to break armor and then it has duration, two-layer conditional. That's like not good for an armor build by design. Block is actually pretty good. I like it in general. But without like two-hand plus shield on a warrior or, you know, mace archetype character, that archetype is like really bad. It's almost like it's balanced around Giant's Blood or something, because it's almost impossible to play without a shield on a two-handed mace build. You could scale evasion, that would be the next best alternative, but there's no evasion really on that side of the tree. There's the hybrid nodes, but there's not really much pure evasion to be gained. Loot acquisition is really weird. I think everybody agrees in some way or another. Tiered items aren't very exciting, although I actually do have 2 tiered items that dropped, equipped on characters still. But most of the time you're not expecting anything. And keep in mind I have like 700 hours of gameplay and I have 2 tiered items that I've pretty much ever equipped on a character, and it's lasted more than, I don't know, a day, right? I'd rather see tiered items just stay tiered even after using currency on them, like maybe cap it at tier 3 instead of tier 5. And like, is it really that harmful if a tier 2 or tier 3 item can be spammed with annuls and chaos orbs and it just like kind of blocks off some of the most absolute shitty mods? I don't feel like that would be a big deal, but don't know. I don't think tiered items are hitting the mark. I don't know the exact solution, but they do help and they do matter a little bit, but they're not really doing it. Then another thing, there's like genuinely absolutely no way an average player or new player has any idea how items are even generated. Like, how you should be using currency on them. The game does absolutely nothing to teach any of this. A good example would be like putting currency on a hybrid fizz mod. So you got like an Emperor's blue item, second highest tier hybrid. And then the likelihood that that is going to get 2 more fizz prefixes through like Regal and Exalts, it's genuinely probably like 1 in 500. It's so absurdly low. Whereas if you started with like Flaring or Tyrannical, like flat fizz, highest tier, or like a good pure fizz percentage, your chances are going to be a lot more higher. They're going to be a lot more likely to succeed. And this kind of goes with like prefixes and suffixes and all this kind of weightings of like the different weightings of what these mods are, and the likelihood of like actually like getting a weapon or an item in general that's going to be good. Unless you've played an absurd amount of POE1, these concepts are just, they don't do anything to educate the player. So you're basically just completely in the blind, and I'm pretty sure most people just they don't even try to craft or think about odds at all. They just go to trade. More Chaos Orbs, more Greater Essences, more Omen type stuff. I know they did just buff Omens, but all these things are good currencies. They're satisfying to use. I know Chaos Orbs are strictly, they are gambling. If we had a lot more Greater Essences, we could try to get a couple steps deeper into the craft. Whenever we make our item into a rare item, that would feel good, having more Greater Essences. Even still with changes. And then for SSF, I've only played SSF. Putting currency into items like 4 to 5 times, 4 to 5 items like mid-map seems a bit weird, but it's actually the proper way to get upgrades and to make your own items and to, you know, acquire better gear. It just seems kind of weird, not polished. Is this intended? I'm not sure. It's like every single map I run, I'm mid-crafting like 4 or 5 items that are dropping off the ground. Transmute, Aug, Regal. So I run around with a bunch of Transmutes, Aug. Sometimes I even run around with Alchemy Orbs. I'm Alchemy Orbing weapons and stuff off the ground mid-map, and I'm doing it tons of times per map. And then, like, most of my items have come from just Transmute, Aug, Regal, 3 Exalts, and just Pray. It's just like pure randomness. It's just basically just identifying an item with extra steps. Sometimes, you know, a little bit more gambly. Hey, maybe the Chaos Orb hits. And sometimes it does. Like 1 in 50 times or something like that. But, you know, item acquisition just seems off. It's not good. I don't know exactly what should be done, but all the way across the board, I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it's good. I'm SSF, but trading seems miserable and probably the largest, I think it's probably the largest potential turnoff for a lot of new players. I love Diablo 2, but it's over 2 decades old, and the current trading, the way trades work in this game is like, it's like almost D2 attempted interactions with players where like kind of bartering and haggling potentially, and it's just like so outdated for POE1 and 2. People just want to be able to attach a value to items in exchange and get their currency, not really haggle and barter. So, you know, I don't know if that means auction house or whatever. The main point is just this trading system is outdated and it's miserable, I'm sure, for a lot of people. An example would be like new players trying to buy an item for 1 Exalt, and he doesn't comprehend or understand why he's getting ignored or why he's not getting invited. And then 2 weeks later, he has a 1X item in his tab, and someone new is asking him now for it. That was listed like 2 weeks ago. And he can't be bothered to go back to his hideout and trade for that 1X item because he's too busy in the middle of his map. And now, I don't know, the cycle continues where like he's kind of like the villain or some shit. I don't know, just PoE's trading system is like absurdly outdated. It's crazy. Yeah, and my experience playing the different classes, so warrior skills, it doesn't feel good to click a million AoE and attack speed nodes because they don't really increase your single target DPS, and you're probably clicking a ton of them just to make your mapping feel good. Stampede, constantly hitting obstructions and stopping on every single monster it hits, kind of sucks. The skill's actually pretty good though, overall. But warrior skills, I actually like a lot of the Mei skills. I think the warrior's the best design class from what I've played. The skills, at least, it feels good. It actually feels good and satisfying to press the buttons and how they're kind of designed. So warrior skill design, I think I actually really, really like it. But obviously, it's kind of one of the weaker classes. The warrior does always have really good damage because he has 3 strong skills. Obviously, most people know it just for Hammer of the Gods, but Perfect Strike, as soon as you get it. And then Sunder also, if you put up the armor breaking conditionals from like Totems or Armor Breaker or Warbringer Ascendancy, all of that stuff is really, really strong. So warrior has a lot of options to do big damage. It's very... I don't think I've seen any warrior that's just like basically doing no damage. Every warrior build pretty much is going to do a lot of damage, so that's good. Monk, this is a funny one where I played a monk in hardcore SSF as my second character from scratch, and as soon as I got to like level 40, my character was basically invincible feeling, and it stayed that way pretty much forever. So it's pretty much superior to the warrior experience. I think warrior actually ends up doing a little bit more raw DPS outside of things that are broken, like Hand of Wisdom in action. Warrior, I think, actually does quite a bit more damage than monk in general, but the monk is like 5 times tankier, maybe even more. It's not even comparable how much tankier the monk is. So the monk Skills, I don't know exactly like what is up here, but they don't feel very good to play. Like I'm just right clicking, like where I'm pressing like 8 or 9 buttons on a warrior, and it feels good and satisfying, and the skills kind of like weave in together really well. Monk is just like you pick a skill to right click with, Ice Strike, Tempest Flurry, whatever. I don't know what the other ones are called, and then you drop your bell once in a while. Also, dropping multiple bells seems kind of unintended and broken. So hopefully that gets changed or something, but. Monk is like one button gameplay, and what is the point of all these other skills? Nobody's going to use these. It's just everybody's just going to immediately pivot to one button gameplay with dropping bells, and that's pretty much what every monk does. Gemmeling, I played it with 2-handed maces. I had some gear, obviously, in hardcore, so Gemmeling is broken, I think, because every single time I thought of playing a new build, once I had a little bit of gear, everything just like screams play Gemmeling because its scaling is too good. The max res is too good. Being able to use multiple support gems, I think, is fine. I think that's good design. But the big one was the attribute stacking aspect of Gemmeling is way, 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 way too good. And attributes, giving as much life or whatever they do. I think my Gemmeling has like 9k life. There's also other problems with power creep in the game. As they put in more gems in the game, Gemmeling is going to go up in value because you're going to want to be able to use these gems. Like, my Titan, realistically, without an Astromentus or some cooked-ass item, can't ever use Temporal Chains. And Temporal Chains is, like, more DPS than an entire Ascendancy node. From a comparison, like, Titan versus Gemmeling, and just being able to use Temporal Chains on my build is, like, more DPS. It's better than a full Ascendancy node, let alone all the other, gems you might be able to use, a Voltaic Mark, whatever it be. On a Gemmeling that another class can't use. So attributes enabling gems is too good. So there's a lot of nonsense with attributes, and it's not just like life scaling or Hand of Wisdom in action, Pillar of the Cage Gods. There's more stuff going on there that's absolutely cooked out. And the gem requirement thing it's very, 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 very strong, because when you play a character that's in the bottom left corner of the tree, a warrior, you don't have much option to use anything other than red gems, and there's a lot of other gems you could potentially use, and as the game ages, there will be more of these. So attributes, there's a lot of weird stuff going on there. It's problematic, tied directly into Gemmeling OP for sure. And heralds, they give way too much map clear. That's what they should be designed to do. Herald of Ice and Thunder, like from POE1, they're nice supplementary map clearing kind of things, but they're doing their job like 10 times too good. And then there's stuff like Cultist, Titan Cultist Splash, Synergy, and other like Giga map clearing stuff, Spark. I think everybody is doing way too much damage. I really miss the feeling of needing character power, like when I was leveling a fresh character, dying on a boss, having to pay a lot of attention, feeling good if I found something that I knew was going to make my character a lot stronger, because I genuinely needed that power. But at endgame, we feel way, way, way too powerful, and there's not much to even use all this gear that we can get on. It doesn't take very much to kind of dumpster bosses. You've seen a lot of people just instantly one-tap bosses and stuff like that, so even mapping, just general mapping, attack one time and it clears 5 screens of mobs, literally, which is even more than, I think, POE1, top tier clearing skills. Drop one Hammer of the Gods or a Perfect Strike and it instantly kills the boss. Drop a bell, right click it with Ice Strike and permafreeze the boss until he's dead. He doesn't even get the chance to use a single attack. That's kind of strange. I love POE1, but wish I felt like I was getting more of the vision gameplay of whatever the devs intended for POE2. I don't feel like I'm getting that, but POE1 is already the best at what it does, and I hope POE2 kind of becomes more of its own game and not just trying to scratch the same things that POE1 already does. I mean, ultimately, I think POE1 is definitely a better game than POE2, but I've already played POE1 for 12 years, and I know exactly what I'm getting out of the game when I play it, and I just hope POE2 kind of goes a little, I don't know if riskier is the right word, but does new things and tries to take more different approaches. And doesn't just like go the route of POE1 all over again, just with a new engine. Whatever the dev vision gameplay or whatever they want this game to be, I'm not really sure, but so far it just seems like it's going to go the trajectory of POE1. And I'll believe the vision gameplay when it's actually here, if that actually ends up happening, because right now it's the game is just like kind of troll. You one tap the hardest bosses in the game, kill them basically instantly, they don't get the move. permafreeze everything. Herald of Ice explodes the entire screen. Spark explodes the entire screen. Cultist Mace explodes the entire screen. Shit like that. I had a very satisfying time doing bosses when they wouldn't die too quickly. First campaign playthrough, first time I did Zest 4 on my warrior, where he basically practically one-shot me if I made a mistake. That felt really good and very satisfying, and I had a lot of enjoyment doing that kind of stuff. I think Zest is by far the best design boss in the end game. Good dodge roll timings and paying a lot of attention to what the boss is genuinely actually doing was a really good experience, and I wish I would get that kind of satisfaction gameplay on a more consistent basis. It's pretty rare that you get it. Ritual and Expedition boss, I hope those guys get revamped. They're just basically copy-paste from POE1. Arbiter's pretty cool, but I think he needs 50% haste. He's just AFK and really slow a lot of the points in the fight. And if you chill him or slow him, I think he just offsets his proper timing mechanics in phase 2. His little one-shot mechanics and stuff, and they just get off time to where there's not even really a true proper play solution. That's kind of weird. The best part of POE1 to me since Bestiary League was probably the bosses. Around the time they started putting things like Uber Elder in and Delve bosses and so forth beyond that point, and eventually we got the big bosses, Maven and Uber bosses and Awakener and stuff like that. I don't think POE2 bosses quite hit that mark yet, so I think there's a lot of fine-tuning there on the devs end to make them feel good and interesting. One thing is we don't really get to fight the bosses is one problem, but I think even if we did fight the bosses, they're not really, outside of Zest, every single boss in the game, in-game boss in the game, I don't think does enough stuff. I think Zest is the only boss that clearly, I think, fits the ideal, what I would consider the ideal point. Arbiter and King of the Mist, I don't feel like they're really quite doing it. I don't think I'm particularly a needy or demanding person, but ultimately I'm okay with whatever way the game ends up going. If it goes more, hey, we're just playing PoE1 all over again with a different engine, different, thing, I'm okay with that. That's perfectly fine. But I would prefer, obviously, something else. And then if we get that vision gameplay, cool. But, either way, it'll be a good game. I'm pretty much just waiting on the next patch to see what kind of direction the game goes. So I'll alk LFG really hard if they go more that vision route, because that definitely is my preference. But either way, it's cool. That's it, I guess. GG.